Hey everybody, Sensei Grizzly here for your December extended Christmas edition of Ask the Grizzly. With me to my left, your right here, is my good friend and student, Omari Flying Elbow Drop Dyson, who is single-handedly probably has the most unnecessary roughness disqualifications in the state of North Carolina, regardless of the competition platform. So the question that was sent to me was regarding defenses against rear naked choke. So I've got a couple things I'm going to show you today, one or two cursory things from like a self-defense standing position, and also some things like when you're in a ground fighting or mutual combat situation on the ground, okay? So if I'm being attacked from the rear and he starts to put the choke on me, I want to turn my chin to the side into the choke. Exactly what he's doing to me right now, where he's breaking me down backwards, is what I want to avoid. This is the big danger point. If he can get my center of gravity going backwards over my spine, possibly collapse my knee, he can potentially finish the choke. So, as soon as I feel the choke starting to come on, still want to turn my chin to the side, but you'll notice where I base out and I shift my weight over my toes. This means he's kind of applying some kazushi to himself in his efforts to get this choke and makes himself vulnerable to the seoi-nage as probably your highest probability finish. I want to keep the 2-on-1 on the arm, okay? The 2-on-1 is what gives me that little bit of space to begin to defend myself. If it's just one arm, even if my posture's halfway decent, his two arms are going to be stronger than my one. But this allows me to tuck my chin and gives him just enough off balance that he kind of has that second thought about trying to cinch that other arm. But if I can get to this point, even if he gets that other arm involved, okay, he can still not withstand just the kinesiology of being flipped over my head. His arms have to let go as I throw him to the mat, okay? So that's the self-defense, standing rear naked choke defense. That's like if a guy's trying to get the drop on you, like a century extraction type technique. When we say mutual combat, what we're referring to is a fight that both of you kind of agreed to be in. This could be a one-on-one confrontation that started somewhere, or it could be, in a tournament type situation. So for the sake of this demonstration, I'm gonna sit on my butt and let him take the cradle position. So he's kind of starting with his over-under clinch. Generally speaking, like a trained guy, he's gonna want this, okay? You know that in all likelihood the choke is gonna come from this arm, so I'm already starting to 2-on-1 this arm. Preemptively, even before he starts to pull this arm out, I'm already gonna start lowering my center of gravity because I wanna change the line of pull on the rear naked choke. Even if he gets this arm out, okay, and he starts to kind of go for the choke, I'm so low on his body, switching arms or whatever he wants to do, I'm so low that the line of pull is not exactly correct and I'm better able to defend myself. Whereas, if I'm right in his power, the line of pull is perfect and he can finish. So, he goes back to the seatbelt clinch. I'm gonna 2-on-1 here, okay? Trying to open this antecubital space of his elbow up and turn my chin into it, pinching this arm off and sliding down. Once I get here, ideally, I'm gonna start, whether it's by grabbing fabric or whatever it is, to pass this arm over my head. Once I get to this point, he can't choke me, at least with a rear naked choke, against his own elbow. There are lapel chokes and such, but that's an episode for another day. But the rear naked choke at this point's been broken down. How you want to finish from here is kind of a user's preference thing. Some people will drive backwards and then start to pop the hook and start to fight back to the top position. That is an option. Some people, once they get here, will either pop a hook and start turning him to face him, okay, to get into his guard. All of those are good meat and potatoes, simple finishes, but just something that's a little more, finesse. A finish that I like to do that kind of comes from catch wrestling, I'll drop my center of gravity, pass the arm over the shoulder. I'm gonna take the point of my elbow, put it right there on the bone, grab a handful of toes, and finish with a shin lock. So whether he's got the hook in, or I have the hook on the floor, I can finish with the shin lock. A lot of times, if a guy takes this hand out, and he's starting to work it around over my shoulder like he wants this one to get the rear naked choke, so he pops the hand out, he's working to get his bicep grip. I want to keep a hold of this. And what I want to do is, if I can, I'm going to start to turn his thumb up, and I've got the over the shoulder arm break. Once I have this like partially set up, this is a really good time to drive my weight all the way in to finish with that over the shoulder arm break. Finally, another thing, and this is kind of what Professor Joe likes to do. Professor Joe Morier prefers this. This is more of like an old school Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu type self-defense concept. So as soon as the one hand comes out like he wants to finish the rear naked choke, I'm already tucking that elbow and blocking. I'm blocking. I'm also kind of trapping this arm, and I'm thinking about the possibility of looping punches from this hand. Okay? And especially if he's starting to punch to soften me up, that is the perfect time to get all of my weight on his face and to start working to get out of his cradle position. So just as a recap, we showed a defense from a standing century extraction scenario, and we showed a variety of possible escapes from a mutual combat ground fighting scenario. The main takeaways are passing the elbow to the other side of the head and either extremely dropping your center of gravity or extremely driving your center of gravity too high over the bad guy's face in an effort to short circuit his choke. All right, I'm Sensei Grizzly. This is Omari Flying Elbow Drop Dyson. See you guys next month. All right, so part 2 of the extended episode of this month's Ask the Grizzly. I got a question emailed in about how to stay motivated during training, especially if you kind of feel like you've reached a plateau or you're not getting as good as fast as you'd like. Some people call it the blue belt blues. I think it happens a lot when people have kind of gotten to that intermediate phase and they feel like they're reaching a plateau. The number one thing is you've got to continue to be consistent with your training. So if you're having a hard time making it to class 2-3 times a week, that's number one, is you gotta be at the gym regular. Statistically, for a person to get better at a skill, they really need to spend between 3 to 4 hours a week with quality practice. Okay, to maintain the gains that they've already made, they need at least 2 hours of practice. So if you're only getting 90 minutes of class time a week, every other week, just statistically, the odds are against you that you're going to really demonstrate a lot of improvement. So number one is consistency with your training. Everybody reaches plateaus, and something that I tell people is the discipline of getting to class, drilling, just refining the stuff that you already know is important. Getting in and putting your hands on people, getting that positive peer socialization, just the fitness aspect of it, staying loose, all those things are good. But in addition to that, if your practical application is starting to suffer just from burnout or mental fatigue, maybe at that point, it's time to, though you're still drilling and still attending class, maybe start shifting your focus a little bit to the philosophical side of things. That may be a good time to go pick up that copy of the Book of Five Rings. That may be a good time to go pick up that copy of the Demon Sermon on Martial Arts or Dr. Kano's Mind Over Muscle, and start to really kind of try to get into the, understand the emotional, psychological aspect of the personal development that martial arts, jiu-jitsu, and judo are meant to provide. And eventually you're going to kind of get to a point where you've fatigued your mental muscles. But a lot of times, at least in my personal experience, and the people that I've kind of recommended this to as a means of breaking through that glass ceiling, at that time, then you will probably start to see breakthroughs in your practical application again. So it's a cycle. It's just a training cycle of practical application versus philosophical application. Okay, the practical knowledge versus understanding the methodology behind it. All right, if you are involved in jiu-jitsu for the immediate gains, eventually the immediate gains stop coming. And the longer you go in this art, it's harder and harder to see new things that you've never seen before. You have to start digging deeper and deeper to get those needles out of the haystack, those gems out of the coal mine. But at that point, what matters more than anything, I think, is the cultivation of your spirit. So you have to have the mindset of being in this as a lifetime practitioner, being in this for the long haul. And if you aren't able to adapt that mindset, then it may be time to figure out how maybe you can change your schema. I would never tell anybody find something else or this isn't for you, because whoever you are, wherever you come from in life, jiu-jitsu could be adapted to you and can be used to make you better. I think that changing the mindset is the most important thing. So, just my 2 cents. Do with that what you will, but I've been doing this now for going on 28 years with no end in sight, and hopefully I'll be doing this, still getting on the mat even when I'm 64. I'm Sensei Grizzly. You guys have great holidays and a Happy New Year. See you in January.